All right, hello again. So in this video, we're gonna go over wireframing, what it is, what it's for, and then using Figma to make some wireframes. So we'll be going over a lot of stuff as far as like what is wireframing. We'll look at low fidelity and high fidelity wireframes. We'll talk about some Figma basics again, but there are some other videos for that, which I'll make sure to show you guys. You should probably have seen a video, which I'll show in a second, about the basics of Figma as far as, accounts and some of the basic interface stuff. So we won't go over a ton of that, but some of it we will. We'll talk about pages and sections and prototyping in Figma a little bit. We'll look at the main tools in Figma and fonts and text and a little bit of that kind of stuff. Grouping and framing, which you'll see is pretty valuable. And then we'll make a little desktop wireframe, or at least part of one. I don't want to have you guys watch me make a wireframe all day, but just to see how the process kind of works. And it just takes practice. You don't really need to follow along with this exactly, of course. So what is wireframe? Wireframing is a step in the visual process, making a website. It's sort of like making a blueprint. If you compare a blueprint to like the blueprint of a building, it has a blue outline, right? It shows where rooms are, it shows where doors are. It doesn't show what's on the walls, and it doesn't show the color of the walls or the carpet, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what a wireframe is. It shows where things go on the page, what's on the page, navigation menus, content sections, etc. And it is a planning tool. It's a sort of an early version of what the pages are going to look like, and it does not necessarily include colors and fonts and images. There is an iterative process, which we'll look at, where you can start with low fidelity wireframes, and then they can get more and more detail, adding colors and fonts, images, things like that. Then eventually they look like the actual web page. So we'll take a look at that, but low fidelity are just sort of boxes and text mostly. So it's a planning tool that saves you time as far as planning what's going to be on the page and where and how the pages are laid out, basically. So you don't have to do that later. It's a lot faster to do it in a wireframe than it is to actually make a page usually. Okay, so before we get started, here's some examples of wireframes. You may have seen this article before. It's kind of older. It's 2019, but it has a lot of good examples of wireframes. So some of these I would probably call sketches, or they're definitely low fidelity, but these are hand-drawn sketches. You can sketch wireframes. Most people do it in Figma, to be honest, nowadays. But you can sketch them by hand if you want. The more information you can put in them, the better, because one thing that wireframes are used for is to give to other people or share with other people so that they can see what you're thinking or what everybody's thinking. If it's just boxes with no notes and you can't tell what they are, then it doesn't really help that much. So it needs to be able to be read by someone else, and you can get your ideas across as far as the layout and what's on the page and things like that. They're often shared. Here's a really highly detailed one. Sometimes people do them on graph paper so that you can get, nice straight OCD lines, right? So you can use graph paper if you're drawing, and then you can see there's lots of notes, which is great, because then you or someone else who looks at them can say like, oh yeah, I was going to put this here and I was going to put that there, and what's it for, and what's the interaction like, and anything you need to put in there, you can. So these are hand-drawn sort of sketches, but they're more detailed than just rough sketches. They're pretty detailed ones, right? So that would be like a wireframe. This is kind of like a sketch. It's sort of a gray line between a sketch and a low-fidelity wireframe, especially if it's hand-drawn. That would be like more I would think about as like a sketch. You're just like, oh, maybe I'll put the image on this side, or maybe I'll put it on that side. So that's just a quick, super low fidelity kind of sketch to plan things out. Then you get to digital wireframes, which are, like I said, usually just boxes and text, right? So there's gray boxes, there's navigation bars. There is actual text in a lot of this, but not everywhere. You can see there's some lorem ipsum text there. The more real text you can use, the better, because then you will know how much space you need and what's going to go where. If it's just all lipsum text, it's a little harder to figure out. It's easy to make a layout when you can make the text fit to the layout, as opposed to you need to make the layout fit to the text. So that being said, try to use real text if you can. So here's some more examples. You can see this one has a grid. We'll be using a grid today. This is a 16 column grid. Usually they're 12, but we'll look at that in a little bit. But again, it's just boxes. These are labeled with an image. Sometimes you'll see an image with like an X through it, and that sort of signifies that it's an image, or it says image, or both. But there's not actual images in here. These are low fidelity. Here's another one. Again, it's just boxes and text, and headings are important. Location is important, things like that. And then you start to get a little bit more high fidelity when you start to add real text in there, and it starts to look a little bit more designed. There's some typography in here, for example. Those are specific fonts. They're not just generic fonts, that kind of thing. So there's lots of good examples there. I wanted to show you, I think that's about it for that one. Wanted to show you, this is a nice illustration of sort of low fidelity versus high fidelity. So low fidelity is kind of just boxes. Sorry, it's blurry, but I'm zoomed in here. Low fidelity is kind of just boxes and text and things. And then you start adding colors and maybe some logos and things and more designing of it, fonts and things. Then that becomes high fidelity. And then you can even go to like super high fidelity, or basically pixel perfect representations of what the page is going to look like. And that's what you'll end up with at the end a lot. You don't have to do all these stages and necessarily. Probably the low fidelity is fine in a lot of cases because it lets you plan things out. It depends what you're doing and how much help you have and how much you're getting paid, that kind of thing, right? So anyway, those are some examples of different fidelities of wireframe. So like I said, there is a video. Hopefully, probably have it by this annoying guy, Introduction to Figma. So that one goes through sort of the basics of Figma and files and things like that. So hopefully you can see that. If not, I probably put a link for you to someone else's video, but it's more of the basics of Figma and that kind of thing. Figma themselves, the Figma company, puts out a lot of good information as well. There's a video called Figma Design Basics that's really good, although it's already outdated and it's only like a few months old. The Figma interface changes a lot. So you may see this video that I'm recording right this second, and it's going to look different from what you see. Hopefully it won't be too awful different, but they do change the interface quite a bit. It just changed. That's kind of why I'm redoing this video now, but it could change again tomorrow. That's very rapid. There's a lot of, it's not like once a year or anything, so it's pretty rapid. But there is a lot of resources put out by Figma themselves. Sometimes their resources are out of date too, like this one. But there's a lot of good stuff, and I'll hopefully give you guys some links for that. Another good thing about Figma is there's a large community based on Figma, and people will make things and share it with you. So that's under community, which you probably saw maybe in the other video, but there you can search through community and find things. So here's wireframes that people have put as it's kind of like a shared or open source kind of resource. Some of them are paid and some of them are free. So usually I think it says that. You can see how many people liked it and that kind of thing. But there's kind of, to be honest, there's kind of an overwhelming amount of it. So it's hard to find like a good one versus which one is better kind of thing, because there's so many. Yeah, there's hundreds, thousands of resources. But take a look if you're looking for something. Here's just an example. This is from Webflow, actually, which is a web design app. And this is their wireframe kit. So there's a lot of wireframe kits that you can check out too as well. But I'm kind of giving you one today. So it'd be great if you're in the 45 class and you're doing wireframes for a project, you could definitely use this, which is the file that we're looking at now. All right. So I'm also going to move this list of things. So I try to remember everything I was going to show you guys. So this is a file that I will most likely give you guys, and it has a lot of stuff in it. I'm going to go through what's in it so you know what you can do with it. But I will give you a version of this file, hopefully, and then you can start with this and not have to make everything from scratch. It's kind of like a lo-fi wireframe kit made by me, sort of. I also got things from other places, not like I made everything by myself. So there's a couple of frames here. These are called frames. So frames are kind of like your artboard where you make your screen, basically. So here's a desktop version and here's a mobile version. Most of the time with wireframes, you are going to make a desktop and a mobile version at least, maybe another one in between, like for tablets, to show what your page looks like. You have to be aware of like how it looks on desktop and mobile, both, right? So you can use the preview mode in browsers to do that, or the device mode. But So these are just a couple of 12. This is a 12 column grid. You can see the grid in the background there. I gave you like the settings for this grid as well. 12 is a very common grid setup for pages, web pages, designs, because it has a lot of multipliers. You can divide it by a lot of different numbers. So you could do a 6 column, you could do a 12 column grid. That would be a very narrow column. But if I'm doing a 3 column layout, for example, right here, then that's 4, right? 4, 4, and 4. I could do a 2 column layout, and that would be 6 and 6. I could do a 4 column layout, and that would be 3, 3, 3, and 3. So 12 is divisible by a lot of numbers, turns out. So it works really well for this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's probably good on that. And then on mobile, I've got a 4 column grid for you guys. Sometimes you'll see 2. To be honest, a lot of times mobile is 1 column, the design, so you don't have to use all these. I'm not using them all here, right? I'm not making 12 little columns. That would be kind of crazy. But anyway, so that's there. Here's a column example. So one of the most important shortcuts you can get is the R key. So if I hit R, it makes a rectangle. So kind of most things are based on rectangles, right? Containers on your web page. So if I hit R and start drawing, I can draw out a rectangle, and then I can move it around and I can make it bigger by grabbing the side. I can rotate it if I want to be nutty and do that. You don't see that a whole lot, but you could do that. I can grab a corner, obviously, so you can resize and basically make containers, which is kind of what wireframes are. You're making containers for the page. There's also and you maybe see all this in the other video, there's a toolbar at the bottom. There's rectangle right there. So I can click there and draw a rectangle as well. I can also select a rectangle and go over here in the design panel and change the size. So there's the size right there, width and height, right? So I can put in if I need a precise size, say it's 200 by 200, I can just type that in. And now I've got exactly a 200 by 200, and it says 200 right there. So you can do it that way. You probably saw this before, but backtracking a little bit, on the left side, you're going to have a layers panel, and that's where all the layers are and the frames and things. So you can click on these little arrows to expand things. So there's the what is wireframing. Let me see if I can zoom in here. So you can click on these to open them up. This is called a frame, which we'll look at in a second. If you haven't seen that before, you can also reorder things by dragging them. You can drag things into these container or these frames. Frames and groups are kind of similar. We'll look at that in a minute, but they're kind of like folders or organizing different things. Over here on the right, you've got the design panel. That's where you can set different properties for things. So if I click on this rectangle that I made, I'll zoom over here. I'll zoom out over here so you can kind of see. If I click on that, then it becomes context sensitive. So what I mean by that is whatever you click on, then you'll see controls for that thing. So this is a rectangle. You can see it says rectangle right there. And I can see where it is. I can see how big it is. I can see the appearance, the opacity. I could change the color here. So remember I said that wireframes don't necessarily need color until they get a little bit more high fidelity. But if you want to change the color of something, that would be the fill property right there. And you could do that if you wanted to. I can do undo, Command Z. Oh yeah, there we go. Command Z or Control Z on a PC. So one thing, if I say Command during this video, and I'll try to make the keys visible too in the video, so you can see what I'm hitting for shortcuts. But if I say Command on the Mac, it's Control on the PC. If it's Option on the Mac, it's Alt on the PC. But it basically works the same. Speaking of shortcuts, before I forget, down here in the very bottom right, there's a big giant question mark. And if I click on that, you'll see all kinds of resources, help and resources here. This panel opens up, and very bottom down there, it will say keyboard shortcuts. So if I click on that, you will see a list of, hey, keyboard shortcuts. That makes sense. So some of these are super valuable, like this one, show hide UI. So that's Command or Control \. You see if I hit that, the layers panel over here and the design panel disappear. You may have seen this in another video, but sorry about that if you did. But But the other ones that I use a lot are, as you use them, you'll get like a little reward. It'll turn blue. I haven't used some of these actually lately on this computer anyway. Zoom to fit. So if I do, I'm going to close this here. If I do Shift 1, your entire whatever's on your page will show up. If I select something and do Shift 2, then it will zoom to that item. And you can also do Command plus and minus to zoom in and out, just like you would on a browser. You can hold down Command or Control and use your scroll wheel if you have one to also zoom. Those are pretty valuable. And then, like I said, here's the shapes, rectangles, things like that. So I'm not going to go through all these because it would take 2 hours to do that. But anyway, those are underneath there. You could open this drawer if you wanted to be able to see what those are until you get kind of used to it. The more shortcuts you can find or get used to, the better, because you'll be a little bit faster. What else is on here? So I've got a couple of examples here. This is from the Ancient History of Politics 2020. I think there was an election back then. Some people probably remember that. And let's see over here. So I've got lots of things you can use component-wise and modules-wise. So you don't have to make everything from scratch. So here is images and components. So that's two different things, actually. Here's an image, right, that you could use on your wireframe. So it's just a gray box with an X and it says image. Big deal, right? I can copy that, Command C and then paste. Whoops, I copied the wrong thing. Command C and then Command V to paste, and then that makes a copy. What I tend to do, actually, I just undid that with Command Z. What I tend to do, though, is hold down Option or Alt on a PC and just click and drag, because that allows you to copy something and move it at the same time. So I just held down, again, Option or Alt if you're on a PC, and then drag, and it makes a copy. Same with this one. The difference between these is this one is purple, it's prettier. No, that's not the difference. The difference between this is a component and this is not. So what is a component? A component is a reusable component. That's why it's probably named component. And the deal with components is you can build a component or make something into a component. And then if I make changes to the master component, then it changes the rest of the instances they're called. So if I edited this, it would change this one, depending on what I do, actually. But I could still change this one, and it doesn't change this one. Also, what I should show you, there's a large contextual menu. If I right-click on something, you'll get a big menu here. One of them is detach instance right there. So what that means is if I make a copy of something like an instant, this is a component. If I use that and make a copy of it, it's sort of attached to this. So if I change this, it changes this, like if I change the color or something. But if I don't want that to happen, I could right click and say detach instance. And now it's just a regular old element instead of, that's why it's blue, not as pretty. So now I can do whatever I want to. And if I change this, it does not change this. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Components are kind of tricky because they can be nested and you have to figure out where they came from. Let me undo that. So now it's an instance again. It's purple, right? You can tell it's an instance because it's purple. If I right click on it and go to main component right there, it should take me back to that guy. So when you're using components, if you right click and say go to the main component, it will go back to the original and you can see what it's based on. But like I said, they can get nested and things can get kind of crazy to figure out what styles are coming from where. There's a whole video. Oh, by the way, I have a lot of other videos that are a little bit older now from GDS72, but the GDS72 class is all about, well, not all about it. It's a lot of Figma. So it's a huge program. It used to be pretty simple, and now it's gotten bloated like everything else. So there's lots and lots more to Figma than in this video, but hopefully you get access to that, and I'll give you guys links, and you can find links for that kind of stuff too. So anyway, those are some images. If you want to delete something, by the way, you just select it and delete. And then undo is Command Z. I'll leave those there just so I know that they did that. Next to that, you got headings. So I think I made these the size that are pretty much the size as actual headings on a web page. So just headings 1, 2, 3, and 4 there, and then body copy. This body copy looks bold to me, so if I select it, I'm zooming in a little bit, and I go over here to the typography panel, oh, it's bold. Body copy is not bold by default, so I'm gonna go regular, and now it looks regular. Headings are bold, body is not, so I just fixed that one. There's lists as well, so if I click on this list, I put in a couple of lists, an unordered list and an ordered list in there for you guys. If I go over here to typography, and there's a little button here for settings, type settings. If I click on that, that's where you can change the list style. So here is no list style, bulleted list, and numbered list. So if you want to change the style of some text to a list or not, you can do it there. Also alignment, case, all kinds of stuff is underneath there. There's a lot of typography possibilities. And you can use Figma for not just for wireframes too. It can be used for designs and everything else. All right, so I'm gonna zoom out and see what else we got. Oh, we have some form elements down here, so not much in there, but checkbox and a radio button, and then the same thing with a label next to it. And then there's a little input field, a little bigger one, and then a drop-down menu. So if you need to make a form in a wireframe, you can use some of those elements there. I also have some placeholder text here. This is Lipsum text. Like I said, it'd be better if you use real text because then you know how much space you're going to use, things like that. But if you need Lipsum text, there's some in there. You can just copy it and paste it. There are extensions too. I forgot to mention in Figma. There's a bunch of extensions too that the community have made, and there are some for Lipsum text. So if you look up extensions, Figma Lipsum extensions, you'll find them, and you can add it to Figma. So Figma has extensions possibilities. You can add abilities to Figma. Moving along, we got some navigation bars. I got some navigation buttons there. I've got a navigation bar who's grouped and not grouped, so I should talk about what that is. And then there's some buttons here which look like the ones from over there. And then a little vertical nav bar. Again, if I roll over something and it's purple, that means it's based on a component. There's the component, and here's the nav bar, or the nav bar based on that. And then here is a non-component version of it. So I wanted to show you grouping and framing real quick, because those are kind of important too. So grouping is just like it sounds. This is not grouped. If I click and drag, I only got the background of that. Or if I click here and drag, I only get the background of that. This one is grouped. If I click and drag on this one, the whole thing moves, right? So it's grouped. It's grouped together as one. If I look in the layers panel over here, if I click on this, you can see that's grouped. The group icon looks like this. It looks like a little rectangle, like everything else, right? So there's a group. If I click on the little triangle, you'll see everything in that group. There's the logo, the links, and then another group inside of that. So you can have nested groups as well. So that's what the icon is for a group. If you want to group something, let's say I wanted to group this navigation bar, I would select the whole thing. And then you can do two things. You can do Command or Control G, or you can right click and say group selection. Now it's a group just like this one. And if I move it, it all moves in one piece. If I want to ungroup it, I can right click and say ungroup, or Command Delete, or Control Delete on a PC. So that's groups. There are also frames, which we've been already using. So if I click on this navigation, like I said, a frame is kind of like your document, or it could be your screen, but you can also use it to sort of contain things. It's like almost like an organization thing or a folder. So if I select navigation here and I go over to navigation, there's the navigation, right? And then that's the icon for a frame. It's a little hash sign, right? Tic-tac-toe. And yeah, so if something's underneath this, it's in that frame. One thing important to remember about frames when I show you how to export is, if you want to export, say I wanted to export this for some reason, everything that I want to show up has to be inside of that frame over here in the layers panel. If it's not, even though it looks like it may be, it won't show up in the export. So sometimes that will happen. You'll be like, why is this missing? Because it wasn't actually in the frame. And you can drag things up and down, like I said, in the layers panel over here. you can drag things in and out of frames and to organize it that way. If I click on the frame tool down here at the bottom, or if I just hit F on my keyboard, which is the frame tool, I'll hit F. And then if I click, that makes a frame, right? Here's the sizes, or here's the size for that one. I'm gonna delete that one. But if I hit F on my keyboard and well, before I click, then over here on the right, and maybe you've seen this before as well, but it's good to see it, I guess, again. There are a bunch of built-in frames. iPhone sizes, Android comes in a million sizes, so it's tough to make a specific one. But there's phone, there's tablet. Let me zoom in so you can see this. There's phone, right? iPhone 16. I have like an iPhone 1, so it's not in there anymore. Desktop sizes, other things too, watches, paper. Now, so you can use it to design on paper if you want. So Figma's kind of expanding, of course, what they do. Social media, you could do Twitter posts, Instagram posts, that kind of thing. They're just different sized frames is really what all those are. So if I clicked on one of those, it would make it. Well, I'll just do one to show you. iPhone 16 Pro. Where did it go? Here it is right here. By the way, on these frames, you could change the name of it, which is probably a good idea. Right there, you can double click on the frame name and type it right there if you want. And then if I look over here, here is the frame name right there. I can also rename it there by double clicking and typing some Swedish. That's Swedish, right? No, I don't think it is. It's gibberish, it's not Swedish. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of that by selecting it like that and hitting delete. Okay, so that is the navigation and grouping and framing a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling around here, but there's a lot to talk about. Here's some cards. Hopefully you know what a card is at this point, but a card is usually like a little container with an image and some text in it. Could be other things in there too, but that's usually what it is. So there's a couple of cards in there you can use. One is grouped and one's not grouped. So there you go with that. There's a footer if you want to grab that. There's a footer there, not much to that. And then is that it? That's it. Oh, I have another example. So this is what we're gonna do here is sort of make this, or at least part of it. And I can show you how to do that. So, all right, to do that, I'm gonna go up here to this guy and just use this to start with. So again, to make a copy of something and move it, you can just hold down Option or Alt, click on it, and then drag. I'm gonna drag it down here. I'll put it right about there. You can see too, while I did that, as you move things around, Figma will try to line things up and kind of snap things to edges and things, so you don't have to do it manually. But it's definitely helpful that way. You can also align things up here. I wanted to make sure I told you guys that. You can align things there and distribute things. There's more menus under here. Distributing is kind of spreading things out. So there we go. So now we have a desktop. So I'm going to get rid of these 3 boxes. So to get rid of something, again, you can just click on it and then hit delete, right? And then I'm going to make this footer a little bit smaller. And I'm doing this pretty imprecisely. It would take more time, but I don't want to have you guys, again, watch me for 6 hours. So I'm going to copy a heading, I think, from, and I'll be kind of strolling around here. I'm going to copy that. So Command C, and I'm going to go over here and select that guy and do Command V and paste. And then I'm just going to put it in the middle. So this could be any size you want. You would use your CSS styles in real life to size that. But if you want to change the size again, you just click on it and then go over here and change it under typography. Yeah, I think that's good. So I've got that. Now I want a navigation bar. So I'm going to go up to my navigation bar. I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to hold down Option this time and drag it. I could copy and paste. It might be better, but I drag it over here. And now I've got my navigation bar. If I want to resize it, I can grab on the end here. Now you can see that things are resizing a little bit. I'm okay with that. There are some keyboard shortcuts you can use so it doesn't do that. I'm using Alts to do it from the middle. There are some other keyboard shortcuts to do stuff like that, but I'm okay with those resizing like that. This is grouped, I believe, right? So I can tell because it says it has the group icon there, and I just clicked on, I didn't get one piece of it, I got the whole thing. You can see it's called Politics Navbar. I should probably change the name of that, but I'm not gonna bother to save a little time, but you could change the name of that. I wanted to show you how you can get to different things in a group though. So if I click on this, obviously I just get the whole group. So what if I wanna make another button? So what you can do is you can hold down Command or Control and then click, and that will select inside of a group. So I just clicked on that and I got that nav button outline, but I didn't really get exactly what I wanted in this case. So sometimes it might be better to go literally to the layers panel. I'm gonna grab group 8, which I think is that text and that button. So I just click on it to select it. And now I know I've got that actual button that says national, the whole thing, the outline and the text and so forth. So now I'm gonna hold down Option and drag to the right, and you can see how it snaps together. And now I got another button. So that's how you can get to stuff inside of groups. You could also ungroup it, but yeah, that's probably better to use that. Another thing you can do is you can sort of double click and then click. Every time you double click, you kind of go deeper inside of a group. It's kind of like that, right? So if I click once or I click twice, it goes to the button. If I click 3 times, it goes to the text. If I click, I think I'm clicking 3 or 4 times, I'm actually selecting the text. So I'm gonna type. Let's do this one here. I'm in the Type tool now. You can also click Type tool, and that will do it too. So if I click on the Type tool and I click there, I'm getting to the actual text. So it depends what you're trying to get, but I'm gonna triple click there, or I guess 4 clicks, and then type Saturn. So that's how I can edit something inside of a group there. If it wasn't in the group, I could just click on it and with the Type tool and edit it. But there you go with that guy there. So now let's see, we need an image, right? So I'm kind of replicating. Whoops, I'm holding. Oh, I forgot to mention, super important shortcut. Spacebar. The spacebar. If you hold down the spacebar, just like in Photoshop, you can get the hand tool, which allows you to pan around. So I'm gonna go get an image. I'm gonna get the component version here. So here's the component. I'm just gonna click on it and then copy it, Command C this time instead of dragging way over here. And then I'll click on this and paste. That way I'm sure it's inside of that frame if I paste it there. Now I'm gonna drag it down here. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Sorry I'm going fast, but you're gonna have to practice this stuff anyway. And let's see, I'm gonna put it up here and then I'll drag it down. I wanna make this a 3-column design, so I'm gonna do that. You can see it's even lining things up across frames here, which is kind of nice, right? See how it's kind of giving me that, well, now it's not, it was. And I did it on the bottom and not on the top, that's strange. Anyway, it will try to line things up for you when possible. And then it snaps to the grid as well, or the guides, the grid. I forgot I needed a heading level 1, so I'm gonna go back out to, actually I'll use the layers panel for this one. So you can show how you can get around that way. Closing some of these up, so there's a lot of stuff in here actually. And you will get a lot of stuff in here. So here's heading and body copy. If I click on it over here, it selects it, and then I'll do Shift 2, you remember that one? And it zips to that. So Shift 2 will zoom you to whatever you have selected anywhere. So I can select it in the layers panel or on the screen, and it'll do that. So I need a heading level 2, so I'm gonna click on that and copy it. And then I'm gonna zoom out and I'll go manually over here. And then I'll paste it there, and then I'm gonna put it in here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be down here, right? And that is actually not inside that frame, so that's a good point. So see how this is not, if I look over here in the layers panel, it's not inside that frame, it's out in the open. So that would not print or export if I did it that way. So I wanna make sure it goes to this frame. I'm gonna double click on this to rename it, example. And that way I'll know what it is over here. So I'm going to select this guy and drag it into example. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me do that again. Here it is. And then here's example. See if I can zoom. You guys can see this. Not exactly, but close. I'm going to drag it down and then put it inside example by dragging it right on the top. And now it's actually in the example frame. So that's an example, or an example of an example. That's an example of if I would have exported that frame without that being in that frame in the layers panel, it would not have shown up. It's kind of annoying, actually. I'm going to double click this guy and put Saturn, or what am I putting? Oh, the ring giant. Oh, I have text. Never mind. I can copy and paste because I'm lazy. So let's use our text now. So hopefully I gave you this too, or something like this. So this is body copy, and you may have heard me say like it's a good idea to keep your body copy inside of Word or maybe Google Docs or something that does spell checking and grammar checking so that you don't have to worry about typos and things in your copy. You're not using the Word or the Google Docs or whatever to make a web page. You're just using it to store your content. So I'm going to take this guy here and copy it, and then I'm going to paste it there. And then now that is I think that is, yeah, that's heading level 1 actually. So, but I could format it over here if I wanted to, or I could copy over there. Let's actually do it that way because I don't want to show you guys a weird way to do it. I want to make this sure it's heading level 2. So I'm going to copy the heading level 2, and I'm going to go over here and select the frame this time and paste. And then I'll take this text, copy the text, and then paste the text. It might be the same. I might have already had it right. Just wanted to be careful there. So there I've got my heading, and then I want to put some text in. So text is, to put in text inside of a design, you can do it a couple of ways. You can just hit T on the keyboard and click and then start typing. Duh, right? You can do it that way. Or you can click and drag and make a text box, which is often better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this text, that body copy there, copy it. Oops, copy it, not delete it. And then I'm going to hit the type tool or text, which is right down here, if you want to actually click on the button. And then I'm going to click and drag to make a text box. And paste it. So that is too big because it's doing Open Sans Bold 24. So this will give me a good chance to show you how you can change that. I'm going to go to regular, which is, oops, I got to select it first. So I selected it, I just triple clicked it there. I'm going to make it regular, and I'm going to make it size 16, which is the default size for text on a web page. And make sure I'm on that. Those columns, and I think we are good. It looks like I lost my top heading. Yeah, so let me go grab one more heading. I'm going to grab a heading level 1. I'm going to hold down Option this time and drag it over. And drag it in there. That's a heading level 1, and then that's where I'm going to put Saturn. So now I know that I'm going to probably put this in the middle, right? And then now I know that I'm a little too high here, so I can easily grab stuff. You can also use arrow keys, which I didn't show you, but you can use arrow keys to nudge things. If I hold down Shift, just like in Photoshop. So if you know some Photoshop or other apps, it's very similar. So I'm using the arrow keys to go up and down by 1 pixel. If I hold down Shift, it's 10 pixels, basically. And then I can move this down, and I'll move this down so that it fits. And then we've got our first column, right? So if I want to keep this going, I can hold down Option and drag over here, and I quickly get another blank image, right? The cool thing about this is once I do that, and then I do Command D, which is duplicate, Figma will see the pattern that you made. Like here I made one, and then I made another, and now I made another. I just did Command D, and that's duplicate. It'll keep doing it. So I could do it 100 times if I wanted to be crazy. I guess I was not quite centered, but there we go. Same thing with the copy. And if I want to select more than one thing, I can hold down Shift, just like in other apps. So now I've got this heading and this text. And then if I drag to the right with Option, I get the copy. And if I do Command D, I get another one. I keep missing a little. It's easier to align things after the fact. If you hold down Shift 2 when you move things, it'll constrain it to horizontal and vertical, just like in Photoshop. So Photoshop skills, or any kind of, most apps are kind of like that. I think that's it. I think we just need a footer, right? So let's go grab a footer. I'll copy it. I'm gonna go over here, select my example and paste, and then move it down to the footer, which would be a good idea. And there you go. If this ended up behind that gray box, you can also obviously reorder things. So if I right click, you'll see bring to front, send to back, and things like that. So that if things get behind something, then you can fix that way. Two more quick things and I think we're done. So I just finished that, right? Sort of. I mean, I didn't replace the text, but I'm not going to make you guys watch me do that. Obviously, this would be different text and different headings right there. But I can click on this now. And I wanted to quickly review pages or show you pages. So pages are up here in the top left. If I want a new page, and you can see I already have one for desktop and mobile, but that's typically often what you're going to have is a desktop and a mobile page for things. Part of the reasoning for that is when you have a page, you can use it to do a prototype, which you'll see in another video, hopefully. But so here I'm on page 1, right where everything is. I'm going to click on that example frame or that example page that I just made, that screen. And I'm going to go to pages right here and click the plus. And I'll call this desktop 2 because I already have desktop there. And there's nothing on it, right? But now I can paste Command V. Oh, I got the wrong thing. Let's go get the whole frame. Copy. Hopefully I got the whole thing here. Paste. There we go. So now I have that whole frame on a new page. So you can use pages to organize things, which is a good idea. So maybe you have a page for desktop and a page for mobile, like I said. There's also sections which you can use if you want. It's underneath the frame, right? So if you wanted to make, say, a section for something, like a section of a site or a section of an app, you can use the section tool. It has a little label. It's kind of like a fancy frame. It's just another way to organize one more layer. Probably not always necessary, but that is in there. It's underneath the frame tool down here in the bottom. Okay. And if I wanted to make a mobile version, what I would do is I would make a frame. So let's go to mobile. Well, let's do it on this. Let's do it back on page 1. I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm just going to do very quickly, kind of show you how you could do a mobile version. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F on the keyboard for a frame, and I'm going to say I'm going to make one for an iPhone 16 Pro, which is pretty typical size, right? I click on that. I could do it that way, or I could, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to use this guy here and just use my existing one because it has a grid in it, right? So I just click on it, hold down Option and drag to make a mobile version. And then what I can do, since the mobile version is the same as the desktop as far as content, but then I have to reorganize things, right? So I'm going to hold down the Option and drag that over here. So I've got the heading over there. The navigation is probably going to be vertical, but yeah. So I'm going to get rid of actually that and that. And then I'm going to grab all 3 of these and hold down Option and drag it over. And then obviously you have to make sure it fits. So I can click on, once things are all selected, if all 3 are selected, it's going to size all of them. This text frame or this text is a little bit too small, so it was wrapping. So I'm going to fix that. And there you go. And if I want to move things, I can again hold down Shift and select them all. There's also auto layout here, which I'm not going to get into because we'll have another half-hour video. But see, it resizes. If I select them all, it kind of resizes proportionally. There's some trickiness to that, but anyway, that's how I can move things over. And I'm just going to take all this stuff and move it over. let's say I'm going to move this down. So I'm going to make a vertical navigation bar just to show you real quick. I'm going to select this guy, click and drag, and then hold down Option and drag it over here. I want to make a vertical. Now you might be using a hamburger menu, a drop-down menu, which would be different, but I just resized that or use that quickly there. And it's not centered correctly and things like that, but I'll let you guys figure that out. You got to do something, right? The other thing to remember too is on mobile and desktop, it doesn't have to be this height. Obviously pages get longer than this. So if you want to resize the frame, you can, and I've got some movement there because there's something going on with the nav, but I can drag down and resize that frame by itself. Or I could take because it might be longer, right? Or I could resize this one by clicking on the bottom, and then it could be as long as you want because mobile pages are often longer than desktop. Sorry, I knew I'd forgotten something. I want to show you how to export real fast. So if I go to a frame and click on it, and then to export, you simply go down, way down into the bottom on the right, and there's an export button. You can click on that. It's a little hard to zoom in for you guys. You click on that, you can see that you can export at one time size or different sizes if you need to. There's also PNGs, JPEGs, SVGs, and PDFs. But if I click on the little export example, or there's also a preview right there. Let me try to zoom in again here. There's a preview right there, but if I click on this button, then it exported. And it exports with the name of the frame, and there is the image. So that's that. So hopefully that helps a little bit with wireframing in Figma, and I will talk to you again later.